A new Reuters Ipsos poll shows that 52% of Republicans now support Medicare-For-All, meaning that more Republican voters support Medicare-For-All than Democrats do in Congress. Now, I think this number tells us two important things, and I'm going to break that down here. So first up, I think it shows us that political identity does not correlate with policy. So this is something that I've talked about a number of times, and I think it's becoming increasingly more obvious. When you look at polling on how Americans self-identify, whether it's conservative, moderate, or liberal, the majority of Americans self-identify as conservative or moderate to conservative. But when you look at polling on policy, whether it's on healthcare or on the minimum wage or on higher taxes on the wealthy and multinational corporations or on getting money out of politics, the majority of Americans poll progressive on those issues. Now you may think, but how is that possible? It's because when people self-identify, they don't often consider actual policy issues. They consider just the word and what that word means to them. So because the word liberal has been dragged through the mud over the past 10 to 20 years, a lot of people don't like that word, including progressives. So if you have a choice of, am I a liberal, a conservative, or moderate, even a lot of progressives are not going to want to choose liberal, because no matter where you are on the spectrum, liberal does not have a positive connotation. But when you actually look at the policy issues, which is what the media should focus on, but the media is so focused on how people self-identify, which is why you'll see, whether it's MSNBC or CNN, talk about how the majority of the country is moderate to conservative. All they're doing is looking at how people self-identify without attaching that to actual policy issues. So how people self-identify doesn't mean anything. What the word conservative means to one person doesn't mean the same thing to somebody else, or what liberal means to one person doesn't mean the same thing to somebody else. You have to look at the actual policy issues, and that's what mainstream news does not do. Now, going down to my next point of what I think this poll shows us is really the power of special interests in Washington. So while we have more than half of Republicans supporting Medicare for all, as I said, the majority, or not even half of Democrats in Congress support Medicare for all. Now, why is that? Big Pharma and private insurance, they have a huge say in policy. Because of their money, because of their donations, they dictate what public policy is, not the American people. And we see this on other issues. So on gun reforms, the majority of Americans support common sense gun reforms. But the gun lobby has overpowered that. We also see that on the minimum wage. So the majority of people support a higher minimum wage, but large multinational corporations obviously don't, and they have more of a say because of their influence through their campaign donations. Higher taxes on the wealthy and multinational corporations. Again, this is obvious. Because the wealthy and multinational corporations give tons of money to these politicians, they obviously have more of a say than the American people do. So even though the American people support higher taxes on the rich and multinational corporations, it doesn't matter. The corporations and the wealthy get to dictate what public policy is. Now, another one here, which really encompasses everybody, money in politics. The majority of Americans understand that money influences politicians and want to do something about it. They want to get money out of politics. But, of course, every special interest in Washington doesn't want that because they benefit from money in politics. And because they have the say, because they're the ones giving the money, they dictate public policy. So, this is just a real example of why you need to get private money out of politics. Because as long as it continues to influence American elections, the actual American people will continue to have no say in what dictates public policy. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button below and consider becoming a patron at therationalnational.com/join. You get some extra content, but also, most importantly, you help support me in continuing to produce these sorts of videos.